Good afternoon, everyone. I am very excited to be here. It's always nice to be in a community summit. For some reason, people are always nicer, it's warmer, and it's just like everyone is friendly. I love community summits. And my name is Mark. I'm now a head of product at a startup called Arena.im. But before getting there, I just want to start by saying that this is going to be a tale of two disciplines because I learned to combine the two because I had the opportunity to be in the product and community side. I learned how to think about them together to win over leadership, to bring the voice of the customer inside the organization and just build awesome products. Yeah, so let's start with this one. So very familiar. I'm sure for the community builders in the room, it's very hard to navigate the chaos externally, but that's what builders are good at. On the other hand, the product side is the same thing. It's constant day in and out navigating the chaos internally. So I'm very scarred with battle. I have a lot of battle scars in terms of like dealing with chaos in and out of the organization. And just to illustrate that, by the way, right now I am, this is Arena. We work with media publishing, and our goal is to bring live experiences into publications. The problem that we're trying to solve is how do we keep users engaged within that space, especially with the advent of social platforms. So this is like keeping live experiences in gaming and in sports and entertainment events alive within the publications. So to illustrate what I've done in the past, on the community side, I've done traditional programs around product fellowship and executive fellowship, creating events to level up skills. On the product side, I went all the way to commerce. So I did a lot of video games, video streaming, building products on the B2C side. And then somewhere in between is where I landed on the gaming side. So I built gaming products that will include questing and achievement platforms, gamification to really combine events with how do you keep people entertained. And then somewhere in between is actually a more unique role. So the one in circle is actually a smart home product. So in that company, I was building the mobile application for the hardware device. And I actually want to talk about that one because this role has been very unique for me. This is the role where I was both a director of product and community at once. I had a dozen reports, and 4 of them were community managers. And as I found out later, having 4 CMs in a 200-employee company turned out to be a luxury. And that didn't happen by accident. So it happened because we learned to collaborate and work with our cross-functional teams, champion what they're doing, and then we were able to scale what we do. So on the contrary, I would love to focus on that one because I think it's not your traditional community, but I think that's where I actually learned a lot. So let's go dive in. So to me, I'll split the tips that I have into three phases. The first one is build the pathways. The second one is make sure that you combine the disciplines. And then the third one is that you connect it with metrics. So what do I mean by build the pathways? So this is going to be a warm-up. We are very familiar with connecting the dots. When I think about community-led, it's really about understanding that there's connection between humans, and then that happens across the company to a user, user to user, and back. And the startup, by the way, I didn't mention it. The smart camera company is called Wise. We ship smart home products at low cost, and that opened the floor for a lot of people using it for different use cases like security, security, hobby, and et cetera. So I'm going to give a few examples here. The first one is company to community. So we learned over time that it's very hard to build a physical product inside our office, and we didn't really have a choice but to send it and ship it to customers because it's very different when you're building an app, a pure app, and it's very different when you're building a hardware product with an app. So being able to test it inside the office is very different from being able to see what the experiences of people inside their homes. So we started shipping these products externally. Now, at the early stages of the company, what we did is we created Facebook groups because our consumers are your average day-to-day moms, students, and gadget enthusiasts who are interested in having this gadget as part of their home. So it has to be very informal. We created Facebook group. In this case, we started asking them questions to get feedback. Now, in this scenario, Lee it happened to be a product manager. She is not a community manager, but we had a problem internally on design aesthetics. We were faced with a question of, it's a very simple question of, A, do we go with a bigger image but stretched resolution, or B, do we preserve the aspect ratio and keep the image smaller? So there are many ways to solve this question, right? You can run a usability study, you can ask, you can do focus group discussions, you can just ask the head of design and then make a decision out of that. But instead, what we decided to do is we post a question to the group and then get people talking. Now, in a matter of minutes, we got 200 comments in this very basic question. And it actually did a few things. One is we gathered qualitative feedback on what people are saying. Number two is it opened the dialogue between people who are for A and B, and they themselves can see it, and they can see both sides, right? So this allowed us to bring them into the product building process, because now they feel that they're actually part of it, which is, again, a very powerful way to build your community as you're also building your product. So that's the pathway number one. Now, another pathway is community to company. So in this scenario, we have Daniel, who happened to be one of our more design-leaning user. So he was very passionate. He gave us a ton of feedback, posted it again on a group. It's a different group. It's a more open Facebook group as opposed to the testing group. And then in this situation, what's unique about this is that the screenshot that you see is not something that we built. So Daniel decided to create his own mock-up to explain to us how he wants us to build the thing. And that was pretty interesting. It shows the passion of these users in using the product. And this approach again allowed him to collect feedback, to get feedback not just from us but from other people. In this situation, I think he wanted to add a few buttons to make it easier to see things. And some people were telling him that it will not work for them for other reasons. So the benefit of this is that you now have someone else telling another customer why this particular experience will not work. And this is good because sometimes when you say no to your customer, that will be seen as a lack of empathy or not being customer driven. But if someone else is saying the same thing, it becomes even more powerful. So that's a byproduct of the community member talking to us, and then other community members seeing it. So that's the second flow. The third flow is the more common use case around community, which is another member, one member talking to another one. So in this scenario, we have Debbie, who's not a very tech-savvy user, who forgot how to set up the device. And in this situation, Rick, another member who happened to be a moderator, stepped up to answer the question. So this is a support use case. We try to avoid like turning our community into customer support, but it's inevitable for people to do that, and it's actually also good because then you can see the flaws of the product. So another space for us to see what's wrong with it. In this flow, it's really about you and us maintaining a robust connection across the community, as that will lay the groundwork for the foundation of product building as we move on to the next one. Let's go to this slide. So I did talk about combining two disciplines multiple times. I'm going to switch hats here. I'm going to wear the product hat. There's this framework in the product world that is called user transformation. So what this does is it explains that your product is something that transforms your user into something that they want to be by leveling them up. So another way to put it is that there are jobs to be done. Your product delivers that. that will allow your community to go to where they want to be. Now, it's very important to understand this because the more you understand people's motivation much earlier in the process, the better it will be. The way we did it for this company is that we started creating an early access program, and this is much earlier in the process. So typically, when you have beta or when you're about to launch, that's where you have early access. But in this situation, we created a program separate from that. We told them that, hey, you're at the heart of what we do. We listen to your feedback. We want you to be part of this. And by launching this program, we are letting you inside closed doors by shipping you prototypes and early devices with the knowledge that keep in mind that these products may not be as stable. Give us permission to send you something that may not work, and just like getting that understanding and expectation setting with the community before they actually join. This was a really good one because when we created, by the way, when we created the program, of course, we had to create benefits for them. It's a give and take process, right? So we created a way for them to get free stuff or get direct line to the leadership team, and we give them badges and perks. So they're always top of mind when we're doing this in exchange of feedback that they give. Now, this turned out to be really, really good when you pair it with this part of the product building process, the build part, because they will start giving you feedback across the board, the issues primarily, but there's also ideas, praises, discussions, and support. So this part opened a whole new door for us in terms of measuring what we do and then improving our product cycle. Now, I'm going to go even further in the product world here because there's this concept of like, how do we build stuff, right? When you think about your product, maybe you have an app, you have multiple apps. There's this concept of like your first product will have a V1, a V1.1, a 1.2, a 2.1, and so forth. It goes on, hopefully, as your product matures. Now, when your company grow, you might be opening a new product, right? It may live in a different area, and that one will have its own V1, V1.1, and so forth. Now, as a tech and product team, you have to think about how do you combine these together, right? You now will have to think about stages of like these are in different maturity stages, and they're also being deployed across different quarters. So the point here is that it becomes really complex because you have continuous and increasing workload. And what that means for the community is that they have to take all of these, right? Especially for your community members who are very, very passionate about certain products, one of them or all of them. So how did we handle this? We decided to use a specific tool. So we moved away from Facebook. We started making it really official of like, okay, we have an army of passionate people who really want to help us. What do we do with them? We sign up for this third-party tool called Center Code, and this is a testing platform now. We started tracking things that we cannot track in social media. So Reddit gives you engagement numbers, Facebook have their analytics, but it's not to the level that we needed. So in this situation, we look at the messages sent, the platform tracks the activities that they started, that they've not started, and that they completed, all the way to the feedback that they gave us. So this is the funnel for that entire flow. And then this is the breakdown of how many people are actually telling us stuff around the product. And these feedback are, again, broken down into issues, praises, and it gave us a full picture of what the product state is over time. And this is something that is very hard to track in social. Might be easier to track if you're using like a forum like Discourse, which you also had, because then you can classify categories and then you have more control over analytics. But the point here is that we have to do this in order to have a better sense of how the community feels in a more methodical way. And the fun part of things is just like understanding how people actually use it. So again, this is a camera being used for security, but over the period of testing, we realized that people are really, really creative. So this is a $25 device that opened doors for people to be creative for it. This image shows medication monitoring setup so that someone remote from their loved ones can monitor their parents or elders and see that they're actually taking the pills. The second one is a time-lapse setup where the user is pointing the device into a printer and then just like doing a time-lapse of the 3D printing in action. And then the third one is even more crazy in terms of creativity. It's a device attached with telescopes to watch eclipse. So these are scenarios that we would not have thought about as something that our customers will do, but it was made possible because we started doing the building process with them and then just seeing how they use it. So yeah, it's really fun to see all of this. And in a nutshell, this is just really supercharging your product feedback loop because now you get all of these requests coming in from products that have launched, from products that have not yet launched, bringing those feedback internally and having an internal check-in, and then sharing the outcome back to your stakeholders internally, and then including everyone who might be interested externally. So that has become this has become a very powerful flywheel for our organization to grow the community. I didn't give the numbers. Wise has at least 5 million customers with 200,000 core community members across different channels: Reddit, Facebook group, etc. This excludes audience channels like Twitter. So we're very focused on separating audience versus community. And then those 200,000 people are constantly involved in our product building workflow. All right. And then just to get out of our the camera setup, the camera example, one of my favorite examples is Lego. So when it comes to co-design and co-building with people, I think they've launched a pretty good product, a program for themselves. So the Lego kit contest idea allowed Lego to think about crowdsourcing ideas directly from the users. They deployed guidelines and best practices on what the values are, what qualifies as an entry, run the program as a whole. At the end of that, you can clearly measure the success. They were able to co-create 36 kits with their customer. And then they were able to decrease time to market from doing all of this research from 2 years to 6 months. Because now you don't have to go through the process. You can clearly see what will be, what your community members will be interested in. All right. Now, the final stage is connecting the metrics. So this is also the part that I see a stark contrast between the product managers and the marketers versus the pure community management work. And it's a combination of lack of proper tooling or lack of comfort in terms of using numbers or not having enough insights, right? It's always hard to measure ROI. I've seen the other sessions talking about how do we measure business ROI. There's a dollar attached to running a company, and running a community is not about dollars primarily, so how do you connect the dots? That's really, really hard. And I struggled with this a lot because my team has to deliver both metric. The PMs are delivering more direct engagement numbers, directly tied to product, but the community members are giving us the feelings of the community members, and it's just really, really hard to tie that story. So I didn't have a choice but to think about what will the stakeholders care about, and then find a way to combine those. So the community is full of content. Aside from the examples that I gave earlier, they were using it for pets, using it in their front door. All of these data are represented as user-generated content in our feed that you can see by numbers, right? But that doesn't really tell you much around the product quality. So what we did is we separated the two, and then I had to figure out a way to bridge them. So community metrics, as builders here, we're very familiar. New and active users, retention, churn are some of them. NPS scores collected through survey and marketing is another. And then just the volume of content that people are creating is another one. Now, I didn't flesh it out because I'm pretty sure we are aware of like what makes community like engaged. But on the product side, we also have a different set of metrics, right? So similarly, you have a funnel, but the thing that we started tracking are actually how do we convert some of these into a product-focused metric. So we talked about the second piece here, where we started counting the number of submissions and ideas that we get. We got that from the third-party tool. We got that from Discourse, and then we just like started like seeing if we're getting more and more ideas. There's an extension here actually. How many of those ideas were actually getting funneled in through the actual sprints or the development process? Because that can tell you the quality of ideas that we are getting. That will also tell you how much you're actually listening to your customers. So if they're sending you a lot of stuff and you're not taking action, then there's something wrong there. So this became a powerful section because it allowed us to track the voice of the the community members into our day-to-day project execution. This one is a little bit tricky. So we started tracking how are they using the product in a more granular way. So you have features like sign up, onboarding, referral, all of that stuff. We had to use some proxy here, but we were very deliberate in tracking this because we know that the community members are a lot of them are going to be your power users, and you have to understand how they behave. So we started tracking that. The numbers here are just illustrations of what it may look like, but when you report it this way, it becomes more powerful to your product team, to your engineering team, and then you get more buy-in with the founders depending on what the focus is of the company at the moment. The third one is case deflection. So we do have customer support. They have their own metric, but the community members have their own corner inside their community areas. Discourse allowed us to create a category for support. We started tracking how many questions are being answered, and that allowed us to understand the quality metric of the product separate from customer support. So again, we measured that over time, tracking if it's we're maintaining it or decreasing it as the company grows. And then lastly, this one is the toughest, attaching the revenue generated by the community members. So again, many ways to do it. We started doing referral programs, affiliate programs, but more importantly, we started trying to create personas of like how many content and devices do these people have, and out of that, what is the revenue being generated in terms of new purchases, subscription, and so forth. Again, this is now really far from what community managers are measuring at the beginning, but if you really want to be establish a more powerful voice inside your organization, you got to do it somehow this way. Like you have to find a way to attach your metric to what people care about, especially your leadership. And another way to think about it is that I've always viewed community metric. You can quantify community metric, but it's also a qualitative layer that sits on top of data. There's an anecdote that I heard recently that if there's a contrast or conflict between the data and the anecdotes are probably the right ones. And that's because data are data. Data are not complete, right? There's feelings attached and emotional situations that people experience that you can't really put in number. So if something is wrong, the community data layer is actually the one that will tell you why the numbers are saying otherwise. So data and more metrics. We did a ton of this. We started looking at, you can't see the charts here, but it's just a matter of every time we make an announcement, we like look at how many upvotes we get on Reddit, and then we see how happy or not people are. We counted we started looking at sentiment. We used another tool, product sentiment, a tool called Thematic. They are digging into our social channels and then aggregating keywords to see how positive or negative things are, separated by certain aspect of the company that we're delivering, whether it's a product or a service. We started breaking down the feedback. This one has a commerce component, so we were able to ask around the product quality of the app, the shipping experience that they're getting, the customer support experience that they're getting, and we started measuring it. So lots of numbers. Once we started doing this, I started to see that the team actually started listening to us. It became part of our reporting measures every quarter. And then, yeah, we're just able to combine all of these feedback in a more systematic way, as opposed to just pure screenshot. Which, by the screenshot of like what people are saying, which, by the way, we still do that because, like, you know, when you have a very loyal ambassador in your community, one screenshot of this person can actually sway a decision in meetings, right? So we still do that. I tell the team that we have all of these. Then we're going to do 5 screenshots of what they say, and then that becomes a very powerful combination. Okay, so looking back, I would say that this unique experience of just dealing with product community back and forth really opened my mind into a different way of doing things. I'd say that the ability to build the pathway, combine the discipline, and then connect with metric became really important. Another way to put it is this way. So I think it's very important to build the products not just for your users, but with them. And the way to do that is to have a dialogue as early in the process as possible. If you're a small company, this is easier to do because you can be more open. If you're a larger company or maybe you're a SaaS business, it's going to be harder because you have to be more polished. But there's always a way to do that. You always come into a table to share what you're planning to do, get initial reaction, and then see and adjust how much you can disclose. And then go from there. The second piece is that really involve the community much earlier in the process. I think I mentioned this a couple of times. And the reason why I say this is when I first had the community team, it's always about, oh, we're getting ready to launch. So let's start doing teasers for community members, generate referral codes so that they can do word of mouth, right? But it's actually less powerful to do that if they don't understand how the product works. What happened to us is that by the time that we launched, they know exactly what's good and bad about it. We didn't have to explain anything. They were just like, okay, you're going to launch this product. We're ready. By the time that we launched, they were the ones doing the support for us. They were answering questions from new customer because we didn't have to train them. They know the nuances of all of these things. And that happened because they were involved in the requirement phase. There was a question asked to me last time around how is this different from user research. User research is done in a more focused way or sometimes one-to-one. A community research is done in a more public way. So you're having that dialogue similar to the Facebook post that I showed earlier. Lastly, again, this is just emphasizing that you have to bring them through the journey, not just look at things in stage. And then this is where community shines because we don't look at it in silos, right? For us, the community receives whatever information you give them. They don't care about stages as much as the company does. So I think it's very important for community members to think about how do we make them feel that they're part of every step, whether it's research, the building, testing, or launch. So there's a story to tie there, and that's what we're able to do because we are part of one umbrella. And then if we zoom out a little bit more, this is really what I learned, not just with this company, but with the gaming companies, the commerce stuff, and then even what I'm doing now. Your relationship with the user starts when you share your ideas. It's not when you ship your products. So if you're doing something very transactional, sometimes you think about your customer as when they first open your website, when they first sign up. No, that's actually, it happens much earlier in the process. The second one is community-led products are built from customer feedback loops, translated into product metrics that matter. So that's the only way that I was able to bring the community and product elevated in our organization, where people are actually listening and people are letting us lead projects that are way beyond the original scope. And then finally, you win the leadership team when you extract those insights from users talking to each other and then building a repeatable framework. So yeah, I learned a lot. Hopefully you got a few things out of that, and then happy to answer questions if you have some. Thank you.